Hello, everybody.
Who's there?
Oh, you've noticed that, have you?
Surprise! Surprise! You've been renewed, have you?
That's it.
And it seems on a moment too soon.
Oh my God, it happened. What's happened?
This changes everything.
I get the impression they don't know where they're heading for.
We'll get there sooner. You can finally
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Explode the bomb.
Here we go.
Hold tight because there's going to be more.
Hello, and welcome to a very, very special episode, very special transatlantic episode of Pull to Open, celebrating the news that we got today of the return of Doctor Who. We're very excited to get into it. We're very excited to get into what that mean old Mr. Disney did today as well. But here we are. It's Pull to Open, normally a random quest, but today a very news-focused quest. My name, representing the BBC, is Chris Taylor.
And I'm Pete Pachal, and Doctor Who is almost back, everyone. That's right. The hiatus isn't quite over, but at least now we know when it will be over, which is roughly 14 months from now. The next Christmas special will be 2026.
Christmas special of 2026. We will have our headcanons Christmas special for you, or at least I will. Later in the podcast, I'm going to outline for you exactly what's going to happen with Rose, with 14, with Susan. Don't lie, I bet you've all done your headcanon on this as well. But it is all happening. It's the most excitement we've had since 3 years ago, almost on this exact date, which is when the announcement of the BBC Disney deal went ahead. And as many of us said at the time, I give it 3 years. No, we didn't. We were excited. We were hopeful. We were, but it didn't quite turn out to be the relationship that we wanted. A lot of us have had that experience.
You know, I know we wanted to keep this forward looking, but it's kind of funny to think back when all that was going on and what treasures we all were predicting or hoping, really. It was all hopium. Like, Disney Plus is going to have all the seasons of every Doctor ever, and I'm sure that's part of the deal. And Russell Davis was talking all about emulating the Marvel Universe and doing multiple series with multiple crossovers and never any gap years, etc. And boy, did that not happen.
Yes, like Icarus, RTD's feathers melted slowly. But you know what? We are trying to keep this hopeful and forward-looking. So let me just say my immediate reaction to the news, and we'll kick over to you for yours. Pete actually got me while I'm here visiting the UK, visiting my mum for her 80th birthday. I also have my dad's cigarette case from his 21st birthday. I'm celebrating with some jelly babies inside. Talked about this on the podcast before.
Reach through the transatlantic subwave network we have going on here to get me one of those.
Yes, nice. You can see it if you're on Spotify or YouTube. Sorry, everyone who's listening all over here. But anyway, glad to have fulfilled that prediction from the Happiness Patrol podcast. Go look that up. But Pete reached me here with the news. I was shopping in Tesco.
It's funny that you're in the UK. Like I would envision there's people just running around in the streets going, Doctor Who's going back here. And they're just like uncorking champagne in Piccadilly Circus, and it's just bigger than Times Square because the news that Doctor Who will be back is officially dispersed by the BBC. And it's just a national holiday.
If you could just strain in the you can hear the sounds of fireworks, Torchwood firing off lasers, annihilating passing cigarette ships. No, it's amazingly they have not replicated the Office gif with Michael Scott running around saying it's happening. We're doing that.
So I found out via Instagram. I was actually getting ready to upload one of our videos from our most recent podcast, which was the Ice Warriors that went up just a little bit ago. And of course, my feed refreshes as soon as I launch the app, and boom, who do I see? It's one Russell T. Davis has a story. So I had to go, he's got a story. I'll tap on his face there on the little Instagram row. And sure enough, I see the blue box, the familiar blue box of our favorite time-space machine. And it says very prominently, Doctor Who returns Christmas 2026. And a little bit of basically the only elaboration I think we're getting on this, other than the behind the scenes stuff. But he's like, here we go. Away into danger, jingle hells, silent blight, hark the weeping angels sing, O come all ye Nymon. So basically it's just a bunch of Doctor Who puns mixed in with Christmas. So, yeah.
Or one of them is actually the title. I'm really pulling for Come On, O Come All Ye Nymon.
Oh, yeah? I like the Weeping Angels sing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm into that. We haven't seen that.
Yeah. If they did sing like a musical episode with Weeping Angels, wow, that would be interesting.
I could just see it being a little bit like Duel of the Fates. So let's do it.
But look at us already talking about the Christmas special and what it could contain, and that means the BBC has done their job. They have coordinated this news perfectly. This is not my boyfriend dumped me. This is I dumped him, and look, I've got an excellent Christmas present for you. And we might. I mean, the pieces of news might not have coordinated well. I want to say maybe the 3-year anniversary of the deal being enacted, just passing, maybe has something to do with it. They finally are able to talk about it. RTD is finally able to talk about it. Oh my God! You know that he's gonna. Yeah, there's no percentage now in not spilling the tea on everything that happened with Disney behind the scenes, with Shooty behind. Well, okay, there's maybe a reason for not spilling what happened with Shooty and his knees. But yeah, let's not look backwards at Shooty's knees. Let's look forwards, because here's what has happened. I'll give you my immediate reaction. Doctor Who is not just back, babes, which is to mirror your reaction from the best. What was often judged the best of last season? The Well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But it's back. It's back. It is officially back. There were all sorts of people on the internet who know nothing saying that, if Disney cancels it, what's the BBC going? Can they even afford to keep it going? And it's just a national treasure and all. But here's the thing. The BBC came out with a strong signal. We didn't even need to do a Doctor in Distress charity record to get to this point. It's just happened. This is not Michael Gray territory. This is not, the old kind of cancellation where they flirt with cancellation. No, Doctor is a national treasure. And I've got to say, my immediate thought was, well, if the BBC can keep its support for Doctor Who going, even in the face of the largest media company on the planet cancelling their association with it, then is there anything that can kill Doctor Who?
Okay,
right.
That's a spin.
Keeps going.
Well, first of all, I want to share the enthusiasm, and that yes, it's great that we have news and that something is coming next year. Like so far, all we know is it's just a one story that's been commissioned, and we obviously know nothing about it. And I would wager Russell Davis doesn't know anything about it. There's been no news.
I think it writes itself.
Yeah, but
it's already writing itself.
The point is,
but yes, go ahead.
The only news is that Disney's dropped it. It's back with the BBC, and they've commissioned a Christmas special for next year. And there's no casting. There's no other news. And there's probably not even a script other than in Russell Davis's head, or maybe some scrawled notes. I don't know. So that there's nothing wrong with it.
Until 11 p.m. tonight, he'll get there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But I will be the slightly more grinchy person here in that I wouldn't say the BBC had done its job. It probably did the best it could with the news, and certainly their take is going to be positive and focused on the future. And the BBC itself, like the news organization, basically took that spin because why not? But a lot of other publications were focused on the Disney Plus side of this. And we're basically like, Disney Plus has just dumped Doctor Who. And it's hard not to see it that way. And we all kind of knew this was coming. We could tell probably even well into like the second season or even before that is Disney really into this? Like it had been a while and the other seasons of the show had not come, and it just didn't, it seemed like there was like lukewarm support. But anyway, now it's official. And I wouldn't say it was a mistake. It was definitely a worthy experiment to see if it was something they could make work. But ultimately, who knows? No one's ever going to give us the real story. There'll probably be a few books and some tell-alls and articles written about it. But it just didn't jibe. And so, to read a little bit between the lines here, I think there's no news at all about Billy Piper coming back, right? Who, of course,
correct,
famously is quote unquote introduced as question mark, at the end of the reality war. And I'm sure that's to come, right? There'll probably be some negotiation. It's far out enough in the future that she probably has a gap in her schedule, and they'll work around that. Depending on exactly what Russell Davis does, she might not even be there for the whole episode. Like there could, and we can get into what speculation we have about what all of that means and what might actually happen. But it tells me that a lot of this was just like, okay, we did what we could in the short time that we had between whatever was final in the Disney situation behind the scenes, because obviously we got this news after they got it internally. And so they basically were like, well, what are we going to do? Who's going to run it? Who's going to be it? Like, what can we do? What at least can we say to spin this? So I would wager this was done very, very quickly in terms of like working out this deal. And the fact that it's just the one episode tells me they're still keeping their options open to a large extent. And it's still even money, probably a TBD, whether Russell Davis is even the showrunner after this. They're basically getting one more out of him. But do we know, will he be the showrunner going forward? I don't know. I will say the news that he's writing this, his stock is up than it was yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday, there was a lot of chatter about he's never coming back. And there were even like these sort of, I try not to pay attention to the negative side of things, but you can't help but see things in your feed. People are like, he's rage quitting, he's going to be gone or whatever. And it's all this kind of speculative stuff. But there was, you can't say there wasn't that chatter. That chatter was there. Now I would say his stock is definitely much higher today. But is it his last hurrah? Or do you think this is setting up a RTD, I guess, 3.0? Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say about the online chatter. One very interesting thing about the online chatter, first of all, RTD is the man in the arena, to quote Teddy Roosevelt, right? That whole concept. He's in there doing this stuff, right? We don't know what he had to deal with behind the scenes, but he's in there doing it. It is noticeable that none of the online chatter has even begun to coalesce around any other candidates, or even really mention any. I can't name a single candidate
who could be showrunner
running Doctor Who.
Yeah, we spoke before. Like Pete McTighe looks like he's kind of being groomed, but it seemed a little early. Like he feels like he would need a little bit more under his belt, but who knows? I mean, Chris Chibnall had done Broadchurch, right? So that was sort of made that choice a little bit more legitimate. Pete McTighe, I couldn't tell you what else he's done besides the cool stuff I think he's done for Doctor Who.
I'm sure there are BBC bosses right now lining up outside Stephen Moffat's front door with suitcases full of gold, just begging him. The only other guy we know can do popular, global Doctor Who, right? There are only two showrunners that have proved they were able to do it. So, yeah.
Sure, but they were also unproven when they got the job. I mean, Stephen Moffat had done Coupling, and Russell Davis had done Queer as Folk and a lot of other things. And again, I think this is why even though I like the Pete McTighe and the stuff he's done for Doctor Who, I think what they're going to be looking for is someone with sort of a longer resume.
For sure.
Assuming again, maybe they'll keep Russell Davis for another season or another 2 seasons, or who knows? If he wants to do it, I don't know. There was, maybe his experience now has burned him.
A lot of people have been comparing him to JNT in the sense that, JNT did good stuff, particularly in those early seasons.
They keep pulling him back in.
It just sort of they kept pulling him back in, and he kept having to, because no one else could do it. It was him or death. And that's sort of kind of the situation we find ourselves in. There's no one else with the stock to use that terminology. I think it's a correct one. The internal stock market of the BBC, it's him or Moffat as a dark horse outsider. Who else is there? I don't know. Potentially, but who would want to take on that job, right? I mean, look at the flack that Chibnall ran into from, certain podcasts I could mention. Love you, Chris. But I'll say that first of all. But yes, also this gives him a chance to tie up what must be to him as a fan the most frustrating loose ends. I'm sure it frustrates him as much of the rest of us that he couldn't use the Susan stuff that we now know all about the existence of. Caroline Ford has confirmed what her scene was going to be.
And that was fairly recently. There was a recent interview with her.
Right.
She just basically laid it out. Like, oh, yeah, I was looking at it from across the street. I think the original reports are like she was in the balcony or something. But so all that's out there. So, yeah, I think it's good that this happened now, like sooner than later, as opposed to doing like a wilderness years, like literally years, which I don't think was really a possibility anyway. Doctor Who is just still too valuable a franchise for them to really let it lie for like 15 years or whatever it was. I just don't see that ever happening again. It's similar to like Star Trek, right? Like even though he was arguably oversaturation of Star Trek the last few years, it's just a thing that, yes, a rest would be good for it, but the world is just faster. And frankly, our creative industries are a little bit creatively bankrupt, right? And maybe that is still swinging too far in that direction, and we're going to see more new stuff going forward. I doubt it, but it's possible. And but the point is, I think it's good this happened now. Because of the comments that Robert Shearman made in the last Doctor Who magazine, which, although he got flack for it, I think the reason they were so inflated in the first place is because they really rang true. Like his point about like, oh, it's deader than it's ever been, and even more than the wilderness years, because of the way they handled the regeneration. There's no doctor out there that, quote unquote, out there in our imaginations who is the doctor. Whereas at the end of 1989, Sylvester McCoy was still the doctor. After 1996, it was Paul McGann. And they were all, you could just kind of like, and they made stories, right? They made books, they made audios. And it's like, in some form, Doctor Who knew Doctor Who was being done. And that's just impossible when you leave on that exclamation point of Billy Piper.
It's never ended on a regeneration before like this. Well, I guess except the War Games, technically, sort of. We're in more of a War Game situation than anything else. I think.
Right, yeah.
But no, I mean, I agreed with Rob Shearman. And in my limited poll of, podcasters who are trying desperately to go randomly throughout the entire history of Doctor Who, I thought it was great. I think it's great. But also, like, as a fan, I think it's great, honestly, because there can be too much Doctor Who. There can be too much of a good thing. I think there's a certain tendency on the part of fandom to be greedy. And I especially think in Doctor Who American fandom, because in the US, you're sort of trained to think of seasons being longer, having more episodes in them. Doctor Who seems like it was one of those in the classic show, a little bit less in the new show in terms of number of episodes per season and the frequency of it. I think we got spoiled by the frequency of it. It's not bad. Rob Shearman's right. It is not bad for a Doctor to have come to a full stop. And that's what he was clarifying himself, right? It was like, it's just that this is the situation that the show finds itself in, which, he and we and many other fans sort of say, great, time for a rewatch. Like, let's just, get the whole thing out again and have the discussion start again. That's part and parcel of what this fandom is about. This is a fandom that rewatches like crazy. Yeah. But also, like, it's proof from other franchises. Star Wars famously took its, had its dark times, took its breaks, and that was deliberate. It was to let it breathe. Let it go to other media, let the legend percolate, wait for another generation to come up and to hide behind the sofa for the first time.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people have been calculating like, oh, well, if we get another season, and what are we even going to call it? Well, season 16 is right there for Doctor number 16. So I think that's what it'll be, to be honest. But, it's like we'll not get it till 2028, right, at the earliest. Well, so what? That's great.
Right, maybe. It depends what news.
Just time enough to watch the whole show.
There could be more news throughout in the next 14 months. So, the way TV works is that if it is going to kick off a new era of Doctor Who, there's no way we won't know who that is, whether it's Billy Piper or someone else, before the next Christmas special. So unless they're really holding, and it wouldn't make sense, wouldn't make business sense to hold the surprise if you think there is something to be done with the franchise. So there could, my guess, again, this is a guess, I think there probably will be news between now.
Yes.
And, I mean, certainly there'll be casting news and all the stuff about the Christmas special, but in terms of news about the show's future beyond that, I think there will be news about that, and whether Russell Davis is passing the baton, or whether he's kicking off a new era. I think that will probably be decided, because you couldn't just do it. You couldn't just do the Christmas special and then like, okay, 18 months from now, you're going to get new Doctor Who again. That'd be silly. Unless they're thinking like, well, it's just going to be holiday specials for the next few years. And even then, I think you'd still need to announce it, because, like we're hearing about it now 14 months in advance. I mean, you could crash some of this stuff, I suppose, but scheduling, casting, it's just too hard.
Getting the good actors.
So here's what I'm going to say. Just really... one last point about that. I am really glad, actually, that Russell Davis is writing this. Not just because he gets to finish the Billy Piper thing, because if he wasn't, then someone else would be saddled with that, and they'd sort of have to do something, and maybe they'd get some advice from Russell, maybe not, but they'd have to do something with it. Now, because he's the architect of it, he gets to finish that, but not just because of that, because I will argue, well, yes, he gets to finish that, but that was also a bit of a cheat on his part, right? Like he didn't have to do that, so he wrote himself into that corner. He shouldn't necessarily, by virtue of that, be given the chance to get himself out of it. But it's probably going to be better than what it's. I'd rather he do it than thrust that on someone else. Now, the other thing it does is that it means the reality war is not his swan song. If indeed this is his swan song, who knows? I mean, well, it doesn't matter. Even if he goes on, it's his swan song gets pushed out, right? So, we had our review of the reality war. A lot of people did not like it. I think that's fair to say. Fan consensus is not really doesn't feel it that favorably, and he doesn't have to go out on that note. And let's give the man credit. He is a great writer and can pull rabbits out of hats. So he's got at least one more chance to finish his run on Doctor Who to dazzle us, and we know he can. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm very optimistic. Can.
And he can also do a lot of things to make the reality war look a whole lot better in retrospect, and to use that unused footage from the reality war. I'll get to that, but first I want to say, this is to a lot of your points. The fact that it's now under the control of the BBC means a lot of things. First of all, dear BBC, please stop partnering with American networks. It didn't work with Fox. I know you... Look, Doctor Who's a BBC show. It's a British show. It's always that. But one thing that means, as RTD has pointed out in the pages of Doctor Who magazine several times, if you have news, you're sort of required to share it with the people who pay the license fee, i.e. the UK public, who are funding you. There's almost a duty and obligation to share like any casting news. That's why they always try and get out ahead of any leaks. It is necessary for this to get as wide an audience as possible. And also in a PR sense, it would be good for them to like not go all Star Wars and secretive on this, right? To actually just like, the second they secure Billy Piper, say, hey, we got Billy Piper. I'm pretty sure we're also looking at David Tennant. There's an online rumor that Paul McGann has been seen in the vicinity of Bad Wolf Studios. I'm not putting any stock in that, but wouldn't you? I mean, wouldn't you just go all out, like the Power of the Doctor times 2? Like, just get every face that you can in there. Say, Doctor Who's back. Like, it celebrates its past, but it's also got this brand new future. So here's my immediate headcanon. That's the sort of the boots on the ground of what we know, which is very little. More questions than answers. But
nobody knows. Russell Davis doesn't know. We're doing right.
But okay, thumbs up for RTD. But here's the thing: he's got. I am 100% sure, and I will eat my hat live on air if this is not true, that RTD is just torn up that he couldn't use the Susan footage. What fan wouldn't be?
Right.
So imagine this. It's Christmas 2026, cold open. We get that footage.
Okay.
But
it's
Susan
with Gawa?
Yes, with Gatwa.
Okay.
We get that, and every fan is going, huh? And then cue David Tennant walking on after Susan leaves with Poppy, and he can just say, something's very, very wrong. Boom, cold open, straight in. Because here's the thing, we got the opportunity for Doctor Who to really do parallel universes, which it hasn't done. And that's, lest we forget what Ncuti did, is he basically nudged himself into a parallel universe. And we haven't really talked about that. We've, in the context of Rose and Bad Wolf Bay, we've had this notion that they're kind of impenetrable, right? And only occasionally with like Pete's World, you kind of break through, but it's a big deal when you do, right?
Right. Yeah. You can do that. So here's the thing. I absolutely, I'm sure he's going to have some more fan service casting. I think you'd have to. Again, we're getting kind of into the speculation era of this. So, whether this is a curtain for spoilers or not, we have no idea. But I think your opening's kind of okay. The parallel universe thing is all right. You got to remember the rule of Moffat, though, even though this is a lot of, you want to, like, basically there's going to be a lot pinned on this story. But remember, it's a Christmas special. And Doctor Who's a mass market show that you kind of need something not necessarily big and dumb for Christmas, but it's got to be loud and it's got to be not too uncomplicated. Yeah. So, what would be
louder and more uncomplicated than a trans-dimensional romance between Tennant's Doctor and whatever, let's just call her Bad Wolf now in Ncuti's TARDIS? Yeah. For the sake of argument, actually coming together instead of being split apart, right? That's a romance for the ages.
I definitely think the Tennant thing is probably called for. Again, I think it's two possibilities. If this is it, if this is the coda for RTD, I think he's got to pull out a certain amount of stops, not all the stops, because again, I think it can be too much. The only episode that kind of pulled that off was Day of the Doctor, where they sort of saved the maximum fan service to the very end. But obviously still a good amount of fan service before then. I think you definitely do Tenet because it's a signature thing of this new era, and we've never had closure on that. I think obviously you have Billie Piper, and maybe you could do your version, or maybe she starts to morph back and forth between the two or something. Like, in other words, she sort of, he regenerates into Billie Piper. She keeps regenerating. Like, it's almost like a Romana type situation, but she's kind of going back through faces, doctors and companions. Again, not too many, but as long as it's sort of straightforward, you could do that. And then it could become something a little like, you probably didn't read this, but there was a book right after the TV movie called The Eight Doctors, which I believe was the first BBC book, because they were all Virgin before that. And The Eight Doctors is a bit of like a character. I think it was Terrence Dicks who actually wrote it, and he kind of goes back through. It's hard to explain. There's the other doctors are there, but it's you can get away with it. You can get away with something like that, and maybe that's what this is. Not quite the exact same story, but sort of go. This is your life, Doctor. Kind of almost like a It's a Wonderful Life thing, which might morph with your plan. But again, I think a lot of it depends on if this is a coda for RTD where he passes the baton, or is it a reboot into Series 16 with RTD at the helm again.
Yes.
And so we'll see.
Either way, I think the obvious way to end the Christmas special, and this is just me, a lot of people have pointed this out on X/Twitter already, is that it's just a perfect opportunity to end it with some sort of meld of the Doctor, the reverse of a bi-generation, where the Rose Doctor or Bad Wolf or whatever she is melds with Tennant, which is kind of what RTD's been trying to do all along, right? Would be a perfect swan song for his era. He's always been trying to get the stuffy old Doctor to have a bit of Rose in him, a bit of new, cool, hip, millennial, kind of, London, all that, that's RTD's era in a nutshell. So to have them actually merge at the end of it into, like, the one true Doctor emerges.
Yeah.
I think that just writes itself.
I think you've done it. But again, I think There's sort of like we could talk about sort of the outside possibilities. Do they sign Billy Piper for a whole season? You know, you could. I mean, it could be interesting. She's great. I don't know. I don't know. I got to keep an open mind on it. I will say I'm not. That idea doesn't thrill me as much as a wrap up on the RTD era and going for something new. I do think RTD 2.0, and I know we had our sort of wrap up of it, but it is. It's hard not to look at it now that we've had some distance and think like, oh, there were a lot of missed opportunities, but also that it sort of ended up shrinking the show audience wise. And I don't think that's just streaming, you know. I just think it was. I viewed a lot of episodes, and I sort of felt like, well, this isn't really being made for me anymore as a longtime fan, which can be fine, but kind of not. You know, like if it was not made for me as a longtime fan, but being tremendously successful, that's one thing. But it isn't really, right, or hasn't been. So I do think they kind of need to, if indeed this is an end, a proper sort of punctuation point on the RTD era, that they bring it back to something that's aimed, I don't know, a little wider. And I don't know what that would be, but I know RTD probably wasn't consciously trying to do that, you know, but it did. I think it sort of ended up being that, and I think they need to really reflect on like, where do they want Doctor Who to go? And to your point about American streaming services, I agree with you. I just wonder, like, well, who's a proper partner then for this show? And whatever happens, and this is probably, I hope this is the reason that as of today, October 28th, 2025, you cannot watch Doctor Who, the new series, on a service other than paying for the individual episodes. But it's not available on like Netflix or Amazon or whatever. I do hope
2005. Yeah.
I hope that, and maybe this is a lesson learned from the Disney Plus deal. Is like, well, whoever they sign with gets it. Like basically, not only do you get Doctor Who ongoing, but you're going to get everything before then. And I TBD whether that includes the Disney Plus stuff. Maybe Disney gets some kind of rights to that. All these situations are always really complicated, but it would be great if there was a single home for all of New Who and potentially even all of Old Who. I mean, I guess people in the UK are spoiled with iPlayer because they get all that, but
I was going to say,
there's definitely an opportunity.
I was going to bring this up. I've got it up in front of me, and it is such a beautiful thing to see as a British Doctor Who fan living in the US. Here it is, Pete. They are under 3 headings, if you don't count Tales of the TARDIS and Adventure in Space and Time and all that. But it's just like, it's the classic show in one box. It's Doctor Who 2005 to 2022 in the other. And then there's the shooty stuff in the third box. And that's how it should be. That's what I was hoping, expecting, perhaps, consuming so much opium that I imagined that obviously Disney would have arranged something like that. Instead, Disney just sort of like was like, oh, well, I guess Special 1 gets its own box and Special 2. They didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't get it.
I listened to, like,
it's...
Yeah. I think the Radio Free Scar guys sort of nailed this one a while back when it just like it was never really about Doctor Who. It was more of a broader deal with the BBC and they wanted Bluey or something like that. And Doctor Who was just kind of this add-on and it's like, yeah, whatever, we'll take your show. But just looking at what happened with it, it seems like there was no real advocate for Doctor Who at the BBC. Or sorry, at Disney Plus, my bad.
At Disney,
and
which makes sense because like everything else that is on Disney Plus, pretty much, is something Disney owns,
right?
And is American focused. Like, all Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, it's all America. Even the Muppets, like the Simpsons, like all of the stuff that you get on Disney Plus in the States, very US focused. So it's easy to see. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback the Disney deal. From Doctor Who's perspective, saying, well, it just never should have gone there in the first place.
Yeah.
And also in terms of the budgets, I think there was something, like we can and we will debate endlessly over what went wrong or, how much of the shooty era went wrong, right? That's a debate for tomorrow. But certainly you can't argue there was an element of they had too much money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, Doctor Who functions best in a sort of Goldilocks situation. It doesn't have too little money, We've seen that. Doesn't have too much money. I feel like we've just seen that. You know, stop trying to be Star Wars Doctor Who. That's been a thing that the show has been trying to fight against for years. Right?
To your point, I mean, maybe they don't need a deal other than like a standard streaming deal where they simply, you know, lease it off to wherever for a year or two, and then and they just fund it completely on their own. And you know, obviously it's a modern show and needs some kind of budget, but I mean, we're fine with shows like episodes like Midnight, you know, like concentrate stuff on like maybe one marquee episode in the season finale, and the rest, like Russell Davis has said, like, you know, we'll just shoot them in closets and, you know, do spooky monsters and do that. Do thinker stuff, employ some good writers, some great sci-fi writers. I mean, there's, you know, there's a lot out there that you can tap into, and you just got to get back to that core ethos.
I can't believe I'm going to say this as a fan of like really short seasons. Like 10 episodes is very much my sweet spot in TV in general. But I think Doctor Who needs a substantial number of episodes per season.
Yeah, it's too low.
I think it just does. I think the format requires it. And the nature of its sort of ability to experiment requires it. I think that, you know, if there are any, you know, obviously I like the Shoot era a little bit more than you did, but I think that the problem with the Shoot era came not from too much experimentation, but too little of a range to do it. And Shooty, you pointed this out many times. Shooty's barely in it. It's like, you know, it's Dr. Light for pretty much half of the whole run.
And
so we just need more. We need more throwing more stuff at the wall, finding more of an audience. I didn't think it went thin. I think it tried to go wide. I think that's exactly what RTD would say, is he tried to include different segments of society that don't normally get represented TV show. But yeah, you can go wider, and you can have more for the traditional fans, and you can just throw more stuff at the wall, find more great writers, and that's how you're going to find your new showrunner. And then RTD can finally retire.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're dead on that. Longer, it doesn't have to be super long seasons. I do like the sort of golden age of New Who, like roughly between 10 and 12. 8 is just too little, unless you're doing, especially if you have two-parters. And even then, like if it's no coincidence, I think that, you know, the most beloved doctors of New Who, generally the fan favorites, have done the most episodes. I mean, you look at our codex, like Tennant famously, I think he beats Smith by about 2 or 3 episodes. I think he has the most. And Tennant, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people.
His knees are fine.
Like, but those are the 3, right? It's Tennant, Smith, and Capaldi. And all 3 of them by far have the most episodes of New Who. And obviously, you know, you can't blame the doctors for TV changing and budgets, and they decided to go smaller and smaller. But find a way, you know, find a way to do more, get something in there. Like, I think you got to do 10. I think that's got to be some kind of, because 8, we found out, like 8, you know, it's just not enough. And like you say, to your point of experimenting, like, would you even have something like Amy's Choice, you know, in a season where you're just, all right, let's try this, and it's talking, and we're just wandering around a village, and it turns out to be, oh wow, this is a great, like, cool thing that we figured out with a great piece of stunt casting, and you can just do that a few more times. And sometimes it doesn't work, you know, you'll get Love and Monsters, and we'll get to that in the podcast someday, but you got to definitely go to experiment.
I'm definitely, and you've got to experiment even with Love and Monsters, because I'm a lover of Love and Monsters, and we'll get to that at some point. We'll explain why. I know it's not very popular with a lot of people. I really dig it, but yeah, something for everyone. Throw more stuff at the wall, more stories and seasons, as much as the budget can hold, and you could have stretched out that Disney budget for a way larger number of episodes per season. You could have had an actor playing the Doctor who was prepared to commit to, like, really making a go of it. I think a lot of it was baked into the problem of, like, they ordered 26 episodes. I don't know why. You know, the Warp Between the Land and the Sea was what, 6 episodes of that?
Oh yeah, it's 6. Yeah, we could say a little, because that's the next thing we're going to see. So War Between the Land and the Sea is coming out next year, presumably early next year, and that's I believe
we just got an update on that, actually, that it might be coming out late this year.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
but
you heard it here first, guys. But yeah, I'm saddened by that on a more fundamental level. Like I have no idea if it's quality. I don't know what it's going to be like. Who knows? I really hope we see some classic Sea Devils in it. That's all I have to say. But it's a shame. Like I get what RT, like obviously it was conceived when he was in his head thinking the no gap years, everything I sort of said at the beginning, right? We're going to do this Marvel cinematic universe. We're going to call it the universe, and we're going to have you're going to need flowcharts to connect the shows between the main show and maybe there's a feature film or whatever. You know, I don't know what his whole ultimate vision looked like. This was clearly an artifact of that, and again, maybe it turns out to be the best thing he's ever written. Who knows? But it's a puzzle piece that's supposed to fit into a much larger puzzle where the whole puzzle was junked before it was even finished, right? So I'm a little like, if only those were like Doctor Who episodes, maybe things would have been we would have had a better sort of run here. Because, you know, like we were just talking about with the 8 episodes per season. I don't know. And I also think that vision of everything kind of doing this Marvel Cinematic Universe thing is now obviously obsolete, right? Like, not entirely. Obviously, we have the DC stuff and whatever, but everyone's scaled back plans on these things. Yeah.
Doctor Who has sort of been uniquely resistant to spin-offs, hasn't it? I think this is something else we're learning. Honestly, I think if we were to give out, you know, our pull to open ratings on whole seasons or whole eras, you might, if you're not being charitable, think of giving the most recent seasons a Professor Hater, because you learn so much. It didn't necessarily work out always the way that it was intended, but you learn so much. And apparently Doctor Who does need to relearn this every so often. Like, nothing except Torchwood has ever really
Sarah Jane Adventures. Sarah Jane Adventures went 5 seasons.
Sarah Jane Adventures, yes.
Yeah, again, we're getting a little...
that era, right? But, like, Terry Nation found that the Daleks didn't work as a spin-off. Like, it's this thing. It keeps coming back.
Well, again, I think
Doctor Who, it's the BBC.
I think what he was trying to do there, it's like there's a difference between a spin-off and a event series like Marvel does, right? So I think that idea of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and doing these one-off series, and maybe some get more than one season, but most don't, that works for Doctor Who because I don't think spin-offs work for, even though historically, yes, we've had 2 that were reasonably successful. It's because the lens of Doctor Who is so wide. Like, it's all of time and space, anywhere and everywhere, you know, like and even other universes. It's like, it's everything.
Yeah, it's already a spin-off of itself every week.
The only way to go into spin-off is to narrow the lens. That's the only direction you can go in Doctor Who when you're spinning something off. And so when you narrow the lens, yes, I'm not saying you can't tell great stories. They obviously did. It's just, on some level, it feels less than. You know what I mean? It's never going to be the impact of the main series. And so I think you can do it in short bursts, in other words. Like, you can go like, okay, we're going to do this. And to the point of Torchwood, yes, Torchwood went for a while, but the best seasons of Torchwood, like probably Children of Earth, and maybe not, I mean, Miracle Day had issues, but when they zeroed in on an overlying a storyline, that really took off. That really came into its own. And Sarah Jane Adventures, I mean, you know, it's fine. It was a kid show, but it had its own sort of kid storylines and stuff. But again, it's like, I think doing it this way could work. And I don't know, maybe it's an overreaction to say this like layered universe can't work because it's not working now for superhero movies. Maybe it can work and we're just sick of superheroes, you know? And so maybe it could have worked for Doctor Who in a parallel universe. I don't know. Something to think about as they get into this new era.
Well, we will see. By the way, it was confirmed it was a Radio Times story just 5 hours ago. The War Between the Land and the Sea is going to air earlier than originally planned. And it's not entirely clear what that means, whether that's starting 2025.
It's going to be our Christmas special. It's our Christmas special for 2025. I'm calling it right now.
You know, we just watched The Power of Crawl for the podcast. That they'll be coming up in your podcast queue soon in a very timey-wimey way. But that was, we discovered while researching it, the Christmas special for like 1977, 8, whatever it was, 7, I believe.
Yeah, the
it was
timing
right
of this is
before
all
Star
interesting.
Wars opened.
Because obviously, Disney backed out. They wanted to time the announcements. BBC wanted to make sure it had adequate lead time for a Christmas special next year. And War Between the Land and the Sea is sort of in between. I assume this means that it's still going to be on Disney Plus, even though Disney's backed out of this. They probably still have interest in the property. But I know a lot of people were speculating that we might not hear anything until after War Between the Land and the Sea sort of is out. But
thank goodness
not the case.
That's not true.
Yeah, it's maybe the BBC pushed and was like, look, we can't leave this franchise for that long. I don't know. This is all guesswork, of course. Hey,
I mean, you would also push if the 62nd anniversary was coming up, right? As it is in less than 3 weeks shopping time, folks. Send your Happy Doctor Who anniversary cards out now. It's coming up November 23rd.
What do you think is the over-under on the pilot fish Santas coming back? Because we got Tennant.
Wow, that's
if
a deep
Tennant
cut.
comes back, like they came back in 2 of his specials, right? Was it 2 or 3? I think it was 2.
Okay.
So
you could actually have that be a very long payoff, couldn't you?
Yeah. I'm actually calling it right now. There's going to be Tennant, like definitely Billy Piper, Tennant, and the Santas. Maybe not the Christmas tree, the killer Christmas tree. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we can probably do that. Yeah, set the whole episode like the warehouse of all the evil Christmas villains and monsters that we've seen in past times, all revealed to be under the control of one big bad. Once again, call us RTD. Often a segment we have on the show. Call us. We can do better than Come or Ye Naimon. And you won't have to stay up all night writing. We'll do it for you. We've just done it for you.
Done.
All right. Any final thoughts before we let the good listeners go on their way?
Just that, folks, you really like following podcasts on social, I'm sure. And you can do that at Pull to Open or Pull to Open 63. Thanks so much for listening or watching. If you're not watching and only listening, why aren't you watching? We're at youtube.com/Pull to Open. And if you're not listening and you're watching, well, I guess you're doing both, right? So, but go ahead and subscribe to us on Spotify or one of the podcast services, because those are good too. And tell us how we're wrong, and tell us what you think the Christmas special next year is going to be like. Who is going to be in it? What's the story? You can comment on Spotify and YouTube, come to think of it. Comment us and tell us your thoughts. And we'd love to loop you in a future episode of Pull to Open.
Tell us what you would like to see in season 16. I'm calling it now. They're going to call it series or season 16 of the show. And in the meantime, come back in time with us shortly. If this is your introduction to Pull to Open, we are normally a random quest through all of Doctor Who. And the next random location is the 16th season of the original show, the Keith Time season, where we'll be revisiting, as I mentioned, that cheery Christmas special, The Power of Crawl. My goodness, did it get Christmassy in that. So we'll see you then in the past. That's a very timey-wimey sign-off. Take care, folks. And Doctor Who's back!
Take it easy, folks.